Okay, you're all set.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, yep.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kevin Quinn. I'm a supervising attorney at the Center for Elder Law and Justice, our main office here in downtown Buffalo. And I'm going to be speaking briefly today regarding real property and school tax relief exemptions that are available through New York State. Before we begin, just a little bit about the Center for Elder Law and Justice. The Center for Elder Law and Justice is a nonprofit civil legal services agency providing free legal representation in 8 Western New York counties. Most of our services are limited to seniors age 60 and older, but we do have some services available to younger, disabled and low-income individuals as well. It's the mission of the Center for Elder Law and Justice to improve the quality of life for our clients through the provision of free legal services. Our primary goal is to use the legal system to assure that our clients may live independently and with dignity. As I stated, our main office is in downtown Buffalo at 438 Main Street, but we also have satellite offices in Dunkirk and Lockport. Our Buffalo office can be reached at 853-3087, and you can also check out our website at elderjusticeny.org. This is just a brief list of the services that we have available. Again, different areas of law that really affect seniors throughout our Western New York area. Our services include healthcare advocacy, elder abuse prevention, income maintenance, kinship care, guardianship services, consumer protection, foreclosure prevention, our housing department, which focuses on landlord-tenant matters, refugee and new American services, along with our Western New York Coalition Pool Trust. To learn more about those specific departments and services that we provide, please visit our website at elderjusticeny.org. A brief agenda of what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to start with an overview of the basic and enhanced STAR exemptions. We'll provide a brief introduction to those programs, eligibility requirements, filing deadlines, and who to contact to start the process or ask questions. After that, we will get into some other real property tax exemptions. And just a caveat, a lot of these programs are dependent on what's offered in your municipality. So we'll take a look at the programs that are available in some of our larger cities and towns throughout Western New York. And after that, we'll have some time for any questions that you might have. So to start, we'll talk about the school tax relief exemption, or the STAR exemption is most commonly referred to. The STAR exemption is outlined in Real Property Tax Law, Section 425. And there's 2 different variations of the exemption. There's an exemption for property owned by persons who satisfy certain criteria, which is known as the basic STAR exemption. And there's also an exemption for property owned by senior citizens who satisfy criteria that we will get into, and that's known as the enhanced STAR exemption. The next paragraph here talks about how the exemption is calculated, which we really won't get too much into today. We want to just take a look more at the eligibility requirements, but there is some language here as far as how the exemption is actually calculated for each household. And lastly, there are different eligibility requirements other than an individual's age for basic STAR and enhanced STAR, which we'll take a look at shortly. The STAR exemption provides a partial exemption for school taxes for most owner-occupied primary residences. And we will get into some definitions that will help clarify what exactly a primary residence is. Beginning in 2016, the STAR exemption is no longer available to new applicants. Homeowners with existing exemptions will continue to receive that exemption, and then they can also upgrade to the enhanced STAR when they become eligible. But new applicants, or applicants after 2016, are going to see a credit issued in the form of a check each year, as opposed to seeing a reduction in their tax bills. So applicants from 2016 and later are going to be receiving a check, which is based on a calculation of your STAR exemption. As stated, there's two different types, either basic or enhanced STAR. A homeowner may not have both, so you have one or the other. To receive the exemption, taxpayers must file an application with their local assessor. Basic STAR recipients typically do not need to reapply in subsequent years. It's required that owners notify their assessor if their primary residence changes, however, as this may affect eligibility. As we discussed, you can only have one STAR exemption, and that has to be on your primary residence only. So if you own other properties, you would not be able to get that exemption or credit. So if your primary residence changes, it's important to notify your assessor so that you can apply for the STAR program for that new residence. Enhanced STAR recipients must participate in an income verification program. Seniors will have to reapply for the senior citizen exemption annually and provide income documentation each time if they wish to continue receiving the exemption. So for basic STAR, that's typically going to renew automatically. With the enhanced STAR, seniors are going to have to show that they meet that income requirement each year to continue receiving the benefit. State law includes over 200 real property tax exemptions, but STAR is the only exemption funded by New York State. The STAR program is also the farthest reaching program, with nearly 3.3 million exemptions filed throughout New York. A little bit of the terminology, which will be helpful when we get into discussing the specific eligibility requirements. First, for primary residence. For the purposes of determining your primary residence, factors to consider include where you vote, where your vehicle is registered, and the length of time that you spend each year on the property. A residence includes a 1, 2, or 3 family residence, a farm dwelling, residential property held in condominium or co-op form of ownership, or a mobile home. The residence may also be a mixed-use property that serves as the primary residence of the owner, although that property may not be residential in character. So for instance, if an individual owns a property that has an upper and a lower, and the upper is that individual's residence and the lower is perhaps a business that they own, they should still be eligible for the STAR program so long as they can meet that primary residence requirement. There are income eligibility guidelines. Income eligibility for the 2020 STAR credit is based on federal or state income tax returns for the 2018 tax year. Likewise, eligibility for the 2021 credit will be based on state or federal income tax info for the 2019 tax year. Income means your federal adjusted gross income minus the taxable amount of total distributions from IRAs. And then we have a website here for the New York State Department of Tax website, which helps to further break down calculating income for the purposes of your STAR benefit. Okay, so now we're talking about the basic STAR program. These are eligibility requirements for the basic STAR only. There's a residency requirement. The property must be the primary residence of the owner. And as we saw on the last slide, there's different factors for determining an individual's primary residence. There's no length of ownership requirement for basic STAR. It's recommended that an owner apply for the exemption upon obtaining title to a qualifying property. So if someone purchases a home, it's their primary residence, they now have legal title, they're all set to apply for the basic STAR program. There's no age restriction to be eligible for the program. As far as your income, there's a cap at $250,000 or less for the STAR exemption. And then there's a $500,000 cap for that STAR credit, which is the annual check that we spoke about. That's issued for applicants who apply after 2016. The income limit applies to the combined incomes of only the owners and the owner's spouses who reside at the property. So if we have 2 owners and another individual who's contributing with income, but they're not listed as an owner on the property, then that third person's income is not used for calculating the STAR. It's just the owner and the owner's spouse. There is an ownership requirement. The property must be owned by the applicant. A married couple can receive only one star benefit regardless of how many properties they own, unless they are legally separated. Purchasers of a home under an executory contract of sale or a land contract are considered owners and can apply for the benefit so long as they meet the other requirements. Corporations, partnerships, and LLCs are not eligible unless this is a farm dwelling. Life estate holders are entitled to star so long as the other requirements are met. So if an individual owns a property and they decide to transfer ownership to their children, but maintain a life estate for themselves, they can still apply for star, again, as long as they meet those other requirements that we just discussed. And now we're looking at enhanced star eligibility. There is a residency requirement here that's a little more stringent than the basic star. The property must be the primary residence of at least one age-eligible owner. The applicant must own the property for 12 consecutive months prior to applying. So if you own the property for a year, that's your primary residence for the year, you can now apply for the enhanced star. Applicants must be age 65 or older. All owners must be at least age 65 as of December 31st of the year of the exemption. If the property is held jointly by a married couple or siblings, in those cases, only one owner needs to meet the age requirement. So if we have a married couple, 165 and 162, we can still get the enhanced star as so long as that the age 65 individual makes the application. Surviving spouses can retain an existing enhanced star benefit if they're at least age 62 as of December 31st in the year the benefit will continue. Otherwise, they can receive the basic star benefit, and when they become eligible at age 65, then apply for enhanced. For 2020 benefits, there's an income cap of $88,050. For 2021, that cap will be $90,550. For calculating income, we're going to look at the combined income of all owners and any owner's spouse who resides at the property. The ownership requirement is similar to the basic star. The property must be owned by the eligible applicant. A married couple can receive only one benefit, regardless of how many properties they own, unless they are legally separated. Purchasers in possession under an executory contract or a land contract are considered owners. Corporations, partnerships, and LLCs are not eligible unless the property is a farm dwelling. So just some frequently asked questions regarding those eligibility requirements for both the basic and enhanced star. Does the applicant have to submit a deed to the property when applying? And the answer there is no. You'll be making your application with the assessor's office, and in a majority of cases, the assessor is going to be able to pull property records to see who the legal owner is. What you would certainly need, though, is proof of your identification to verify that you match the name of the owner that the assessor's office has on file. How long does the applicant have to own the property to receive the star exemption? As we discussed with that basic star, there's no length of ownership requirement. For the enhanced star, however, the applicant must own the property for 12 consecutive months prior to their application. If multiple siblings own a parcel and each has a house on the property, are they each entitled to exemptions? The answer is yes. If the parcel contains two or more physically separate residences, a star may be granted for each residence where each is the primary residence of at least one of the owners, and the residence would be eligible for the exemption if it were separately assessed and owned solely by the owners residing therein. Only one exemption may be applied to the land, however. So if we have two residences on one large piece of land and two different owners for each residence, so long as they meet the eligibility requirements, they can each have a star exemption on each residence. May a person who has less than fee ownership receive the star exemption? And that really depends. like we spoke about, a life tenant, a trust beneficiary, or a purchaser under an executory contract are all considered to be owners for purposes of STAR. For the purposes of STAR, a life tenant is considered the owner of the property so long as the life estate holder is alive. So you don't always have to show that you have fee ownership to apply. There are those certain circumstances where you may not have that, but can still be eligible. This again is from the New York Department of Tax website, and this is how the assessors will take a look at your income for the purposes of determining your eligibility. Again, we won't dive too much into the numbers or calculations, but that's there for your reference. And also the tax website is a great resource for determining eligibility as well. So that's a real basic overview of the basic and enhanced STAR programs and the eligibility requirements. If you have any questions about those programs, I would encourage you to contact your local assessor's office. You can also contact us at the Center for Elder Law and Justice, again at 853-3087. But next, we're going to take a look at different tax exemption programs available. And a lot of these depend on the municipality that you're residing in. Each municipality offers different programs. Many are the same across the board, which we'll take a look at. We're going to devote our focus to some of the larger towns and cities throughout Western New York. We'll begin with the city of Buffalo, Niagara Falls, and the city of Lackawanna. And then we'll look at the programs offered by Buffalo's first ring suburbs in the town of Cheektowaga, West Seneca, AMHERST, and Tonawanda. Again, for more specific programs within your town or village, contact your local assessor's office to learn more. Okay, in the city of Buffalo, we have a long list of exemptions that are available outside of the basic and enhanced STAR. There's a December 1st filing deadline for these programs. At the top, we have the phone number for the Department of Assessment and Taxation. If you have any questions about these programs, we'd encourage you to give them a call. First is the veterans exemption. An applicant must have served in active duty during a period of war. A reservist's annual active duty for training does not apply for this exemption. The exemption equates to a 15% exemption for service in other than a war zone, and an additional 10% exemption for service in a combat zone, or if the applicant's a recipient of an expeditionary medal. For applicants with a service-connected disability, 0.5% of disability verified by the Veterans Administration would be the amount of the exemption there. There's also a senior citizen exemption, which would sound like it's similar to the enhanced STAR program, but there are some more stringent eligibility requirements. All owners must be 65 prior to December 31st, except for a spouse or sibling. The income from all of the owners must be less than $37,400. The applicant must be the owner of record for at least 1 year. They must reside on the premises. The percentage of the exemptions determined by your annual income. And another benefit here is the senior citizen exemption also provides for a 40% reduction in your water bill. Continuing on with the city of Buffalo exemptions, we have the senior citizen longtime resident exemption. All owners must be at least 65 years of age or older prior to December 31st, except for a spouse or sibling. The applicant must own and reside in a 1, 2, or 3 family residence located in a census tract that has a median income not exceeding $16,056, which is identified in the 2010 census. The property must be the primary residence of one of the owners. One of the owners must have owned and resided in the property for 25 consecutive years. The total household income must not exceed $30,000. And the savings under this program are dependent on your income and how that's calculated by the assessor. Persons with disabilities and limited income exemption. The property must be the primary residence of a disabled person, and the savings there are up to 50%. Must be the owner or dwelling of the spouse or sibling of the owner. All income must be less than $37,400, and the applicant must be disabled as determined by the Social Security Administration, the Railroad Retirement Association, or otherwise certified as legally blind by the Blind Administration. Next, we'll get into the City of Lackawanna real property tax exemptions. At the top, we have the assessor's office contact number, as well as the assessor's website on the lackawanna.gov site. The first is the Veterans Real Property Tax Exemption. It's based on a percentage of assessed valuation with certain maximum levels of the exemption. Is limited to the primary residence of the veteran who's applying. It must be used exclusively for residential purposes of a wartime veteran. And it's also available to honorably discharged veterans or certain family members who served during certain periods of wartime. Provides a property tax exemption of 15% of the assessed valuation with a maximum of $18,000 to wartime veterans, and or an additional 10% of an assessed valuation to those who served in the combat zone, and or an additional permanent exemption for those who have permanent service-connected disability rating from the VA. There's a list of wartime periods that an applicant must have served in, and I would recommend, again, checking the assessor's website there for a list of those wartime periods. The Cold War Veterans Exemption provides a basic property tax exemption of 15% of the assessed value on Erie County taxes to veterans who served during the Cold War period. There's an additional exemption available to disabled vets equal to half of their service-connected disability rating. The basic exemption is limited to 10 years, but there is no time limit for a disabled application. It's limited to the primary residence of the veteran and is not applicable to school taxes. Again, with the school taxes, we'd be looking at the basic and enhanced STAR program. Applications are submitted by filing an application for veterans exemption from real property taxation, which is a state form that's filed with the assessor by March 1st. You must show discharge or release under honorable conditions, and that service was during the Cold War period. The City of Niagara Falls tax exemptions. Again, we have information for the assessor's office, the City of Niagara Falls website, which goes on to describe these programs in a bit more detail. We have the alternative veterans exemption that's limited to wartime veterans, and the property must be a primary residence of an owner who served, and the list of wartime dates there that's taken from the website. For a wartime veteran, there's an exemption allowed of 15%. If you serve in the combat zone, there's a possibility of an additional 10% exemption. And if you have a service-connected disability, that exemption would be half of your VA rating. Veterans who receive the Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal are eligible for a 25% exemption. When applying, the following must be submitted to the assessor's office: discharge papers or separation from active duty, proof of combat duty, proof of your primary residence, and proof of your disability rating. The next town we're going to take a look at is the town of Cheektowaga. Applications for these exemptions are due by March 1st. Again, we have the assessor's contact information and website, so you can learn more about the programs in a bit more detail. But they do offer exemptions for persons with disabilities and limited incomes. There's a veterans exemption, a clergy exemption, as well as a commercial and industrial exemption. There's also a home improvement exemption. For disabilities pursuant to the ADA, any increase in value to the property may be exempt. Capital improvements to 1 to 3 family dwellings may be partially exempt as well. So if a homeowner is making improvements to a property to best meet any needs that they have as a result of a disability, that increase in value may be exempt under this exemption. Again, I'd recommend contacting the assessors or the assessor's website to learn more about this program. The town of West Seneca, we have their contact information there. What we found is that they do have the veterans real property tax exemption, also the persons with disabilities and limited incomes exemption as well. The town of Amherst, contact information is at the top. The common exemptions that they provide are a disability exemption, a low-income senior exemption, a veterans exemption, as well as a business exemption as well. Town of Tonawanda, contact information is at the top. And like some of the other towns that we've seen, their common exemptions include a disability exemption, low-income senior exemption, veterans exemption, and a business exemption as well. There's more detail on each of these programs by contacting your assessor or checking the town website. So that's a brief overview of the different programs that are provided by some of our larger cities and towns throughout Western New York. Again, I would recommend contacting your assessor or checking your town's website for more specific information on the programs that are available, as well as the eligibility requirements. You can also always contact the Center for Elder Law and Justice if you have specific questions about eligibility for not just the STAR program, but also some of these other programs that are offered in your municipality. With that, I will have some time for questions. Shayna, has anyone made any questions on the Facebook Live?
Yes, Kevin, I typed in a question to you. If a homeowner currently has the STAR exemption on their primary residence and obtained the exemption prior to 2016, but purchases a new property that will be their new primary residence, can they transfer the existing STAR benefit to this property, or would they need to reapply when they purchase the new property?
I would recommend that that individual reapply because the STAR is going to apply only to their primary residence. If that has changed, then I would contact your assessor's office to create that new exemption on your new primary residence.
Okay, I don't see any other questions as of right now.
Okay. Again, folks can always contact us if they're seeing this presentation at a later date, or if you are viewing now and something comes to mind, please feel free to give us a call. Our housing department would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.